Welcome back to Just Ask Dr. Macie and Guests. I'm your host. I'm Dr. Macie Smith, the social gerontologist providing education, training, and caregiver coaching to help you and your families reach the next level of care. Joining us this National Family Caregivers Awareness Month and Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month is none other than Dan Gasby. Does the name sound familiar? Well, it should. Dan is the co-founder of the B. Smith brand, along with his late wife and business partner, the American chef, supermodel, and lifestyle maven B. Smith. Together, they produced B. Smith branded television shows, magazines, books, restaurants, and a line of branded home goods still sold at major retailers. Prior to that, Dan had a highly successful television sales and production career for shows such as the Oprah Winfrey Show, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, and the Essence Awards on CBS. All of my favorite shows. Following B's 2013 early onset Alzheimer's diagnosis, the couple authored the book Before I Forget. Dan was B's chief caregiver during her illness and has become a leading voice for Alzheimer's awareness and caregiving. Let's welcome to the platform today none other than my friend, Dan Gasby. How you doing today, Dan?
It is so good to be here to share moments with you, and what you're doing and what you are and have done is put a face and put a perspective on things that traditionally people in general don't want to talk about, which is dementia and Alzheimer's, but also the whole notion of the role of a caregiver. So I want to thank you for allowing me to spend time with you.
I really appreciate this. You know, I have to call you my friend because I met you 6 years ago. I met you, I met B, and I met her sister when you all were here with the Alzheimer's Association over at the State House. And that's when I found out you had South Carolina roots. So you like the homie, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We go back. We go back to Bennettsville, Durham,
Uh-oh.
absolutely.
You got South Carolina and North Carolina all up in your blood. And so, you know, I love that. And for people who are not familiar with B. Smith, I'm not sure how they're not familiar with B. Smith, because I'm gonna tell you, in the 90s, Dan, I remember watching B as a supermodel and also as a chef. She had like a cooking show, right?
Yeah, lifestyle show.
And the sister was rocking locks. So I was like, she's not only beautiful, but she looks just like me. She's a representation of all the Black and brown girls, and she's out front and making things happen. Who is B. Smith for those who don't know?
Well, I can tell you, first and foremost, she was and will always be the love of my life. She was the kindest person. I always joke and say my mother was a saint and B was even more saintly. She was the most down-to-earth, fierce competitor, but kind person that you could ever meet. We were married 28 years. We never had one argument.
Wow.
Not one. And it's been documented because people on television have said they heard my wife at 18 years say, we didn't argue. We would look at something and we could say, we're going to do that. Like the magazine, the book, the radio show, the television show. I co-created that with her. I sold the show. I miss her. And I miss what I had, but to know you had the perfect love and know what love really is, gives you a perspective on life. And
Yes.
the most important thing that I learned is that we didn't compete with each other, we completed each other.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And we were always honest. And what she brought to the table was a kindness and a sense of self as a woman of color, a dark-skinned girl, because as she would always say to me, when she was modeling, her hair wasn't long enough or it wasn't straight enough, her skin wasn't light enough. You know, she spoke the King's English.
Yes.
And people wanted her to be more colloquial. She could cook chitlins in high heels.
Okay.
Okay. She used to, in one of her, the first book, B. Smith Entertaining, Cooking for Friends, she did chitlins and puff pastry.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
But at the same time, in the 70s, she was doing sushi in her own apartment on the east side of Manhattan. She could sing, she could dance, she could act. She missed a couple of times being Cosby's wife on the Cosby Show. She did, theater on Broadway. She had a voice like an angel. Her smile and her laugh was like a bottle of champagne being uncorked. We had a perfect relationship. And I can remember, about 12 years ago, I was looking out over Central Park. We had a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. And I said to God, I said, I don't care what I have more. I just want to keep what I have now. And about a year later, she was diagnosed with, I started to notice things that became apparent that there was a problem. And because she was razor sharp, she could look at food and cook it. She could speak German because she lived and modeled in Germany. She was a student of the universe who only had a high school degree, but she had a PhD in life. Oh, wow. And we moved as one. There is no one on this planet now or before can say when they saw us together, we weren't together as one. We didn't believe in ego. We believed as we go. We believed in we go. Oh, I love that. You don't compete, you complete each other. No ego, we go. I'm writing that stuff now. I'll credit you because when my husband tell him, I'm gonna tell him it ain't ego, it's we go, baby. Yeah. And so everything we did, we talked about. When we got together, the biggest thing we said, what are you going to do when the what ifs become the what nows, and where are you going to go? Wow. So the first thing after we got married, I came in the relationship successful. She came, we talked about having a will. We talked about what happens if you suddenly become incapacitated, which seemed like it wasn't going to ever happen because her health was stunning. And as you know, young onset or early onset Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's in general, there's predilections for it genetically that you have nothing to do. It's sort of like you win the lotto in reverse. Well, she had that, she had those genes that at one point would be triggered. And when we got the diagnosis, we left Mount Sinai and we walked from about 101st Street to around 93rd. And she turned to me and she says, I'm broken. I know what I have, and I know where this is going to take me. And I want you to understand there's going to come a time when I'm not going to be there. And you're going to need to be free. You're going to need to be able to keep moving and keep yourself together. And I want you to do that. And we had talked about that years before, about the wills and stuff like that, because we never had arguments about, we'd walk in and buy an apartment. I'd say, honey, she'd be in Miami. I'd say, I looked at this apartment, it's overlooking this, is that. She says, well, what do you think? I says, I like it. She says, buy it. Okay, so my husband and I, we'll bump heads on that because, Dan, my thing is, and I don't know who came up with this, I think I came up with it. I handle the inside, he handles the outside, and now it's kind of reversed. He want to come inside, Dan, and I don't know how I'm feeling about that. Well, I would say to him, it's like playing football. You got to have an offense and a defense. And right. And you got to stay in your lane but you always listen. You always listen. So you just said something that I want to pick back up on. Number one, the African-American community historically and notoriously does not prepare for advanced care. No. We do not plan or prepare for death. We plan for living, but we also have to plan for death. And you stated that you and B talked about not what if, but when. So speak a little bit about some of the early signs of early onset Alzheimer's. Let me take it back one step. Okay. this is what I learned
Okay.
firsthand. People in general, but I'm talking about us,
Mhm.
have a attitude that death is almost optional.
Right. That part.
And, nobody gets out of this alive. The last year of your life is usually the most expensive and painful year of your life. We don't want to talk about those things, and we want to put those, you can't put, God says he takes care of those who take care of themselves, if you want to go back to biblical, understandings. We talked about these things. We understood that would happen. And what was so prophetic is what she said. She says, everybody wants to be around you when everything is right or hot. But the moment things break down, they run away from you like you were nuclear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw that over and over again. And I saw it in her eyes when people would pity her or feel sorry because she wasn't the same person, or she would ask the same question. I saw that in some of her girlfriends or friends, but you don't find out who people are until you find out what they can't get.
Yes. Yes. Speak.
And with relatives, there's an old saying about volunteerism to a tough situation. There's one person that will step up, or everybody steps back and one person is left up.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that transpired. And that's when we talked about doing this book. She says, I want to tell the story. I want you to tell the whole story. Don't put any sugar on it.
Yeah. Right. And I enjoy the transparency in the book. And I know that was something that was very heartfelt. It was definitely meaningful. And it was almost like it was an obligation and or responsibility in terms of being able to tell your story, being able to tell her story, but at the same time, you're helping others. And we got to realize, and many people don't at first, but whenever there's a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and or progressive type of dementia, it's not an individual diagnosis. It is a family system diagnosis. Talk to us about your caregiving style. I mentioned in the opening that you were her chief caregiver. I don't think many people have ever heard that term. Describe to us what is a chief caregiver and how did the family dynamics play a role in her complete care?
Well, let me say this. I knew that I was going to spend the rest of my life with this woman.
Mhm.
I fully expected her to bury me. I made a promise to her. She made a promise to me that if then becomes now, that we would take care of each other,
Mhm.
that until it became so untenable that you had to have assistance in some sort of facility, she was going to be with me. And we had a beach house, beautiful beach house in Sag Harbor Hills. I sold it and moved to a place in the woods, a larger place. I cut down 100 trees to make Central Park for her.
Wow.
I cleared out an area and called it Central Bark for the dog because I wanted, we never had kids together. She'd say, come here, baby, come here, as things progress. So every dog, we had 5 dogs, Bishop, Sansa, Zeus, Biggie, and Little Clem. So we had Biggie and Little Clem, and all of them were called Bishop because once you start to devolve, things become very simple. I realized that I was not going to let her be in a facility. We were going to take care of her. My daughter, by birth, was her daughter. Her mother didn't take care of her the same way B did. And she would say, I love my mom birthed me. Barbara's my mother. She gave up 4.5 years of her life to take care of her because she taught her all the things she needed to learn as a woman. We made a commitment.
Yeah.
I was not going to let her be in a facility. And I believe in facilities, don't get me wrong. And some people can't handle it. When you're in an Alzheimer's relationship with a loved one, especially a husband or a wife, you're in an abusive relationship.
Wow.
The caregiver is an abused person. There's no real communication. There's no understanding of what's right or wrong. They do things that will drive you crazy. The expense on your mind time is unfathomable. You break a glass, you step on the glass. The person who has Alzheimer's doesn't tell you, walk in the room, you cut your foot, you've got an infection for 6 weeks or whatever. And they're going, well, how are you? And you want to go, how am I? You just broke this glass, but you can't get angry. The toughest thing in the relationship is understanding the toughest language in the world is not some foreign language, it's patience.
Say that. And you can't teach patience because.
You cannot teach it. And that's why some people cannot take care of someone. And if you're self-centered, and I get calls and direct messages all the time saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And I say, well, then you've got to put that person, find the best facility, put that person in the facility. You've got to go on a regular basis. You've got to go unannounced because there's abuse in those facilities. You don't know once you walk out that door that they don't put that person in a closet.
No, you don't know. And I'm glad you're speaking to this. And I really appreciate your openness in your direct sense of communication, because I'm very direct as well. And so when I'm going in and I'm working with a family, because they typically call me, Dan, when there's an emergency, mom has wandered away, she cussing everybody out, she's stripping, taking off her clothes.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't know what to do, right? Mom got to go somewhere. And so the very first thing I talk about is who is providing the care? What type of natural supports are available? Because the paid support, you can forget that. You know, a lot of times, and I'm sure you found this out too, Medicare does not pay for long-term services and supports. No. Medicare does not pay for facilities. Medicare does not pay for someone to come into the home. And the sad part about the situation is people don't know until they need it. And it's like a big hand slapping them across the face.
We think real sickness and death are optional in this country, and particularly Black folks.
Yeah.
Black folks we have an amazing ability. It's just like why therapy is important. Why being able to talk to somebody. You know, I have a friend and he's a therapist, and his best friend and college roommate was one of the most brilliant football minds, Bill Walsh from the San Francisco 49ers. And he once said to me, and I never forgot it, he says, everybody goes to the coach. Who does the coach go to?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The caregiver needs a caregiver. That's right.
Everybody goes to mama. Well, who does mama go to?
Right, right. So when I go in and I assess the family dynamics, right? If the daughter is the one taking care of mom and the daughter has a short fuse, doesn't have any patience, I say to that daughter, you can't provide one-on-one care.
Yes.
You can, but here's the thing, Dan, but I told mama I would never put her in a facility. I told mama that I would take care of her for the rest of her life. I said, mama didn't know she was going to have Alzheimer's disease. Mama didn't know she was going to have dementia. Mama did not know that she was not going to have the mental and the cognitive capacity to not manage her day to day. And so if you're not healthy and you're not well, because you're not going to be, where she's going to end up someplace where she is not appropriate for, where she doesn't want to be.
I get that a couple of times a month. Well, the dynamic I get is one of two, and you nailed it. Well, there's two daughters, and one has done everything, and the other, I call it the 3 C's. You know the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic? There's the 3 C's. Anybody can complain. Some people have the ability to objectively critique, but to create a situation that's right, very few have. And so what happens is that one daughter, through guilt, it's like, I've been to a lot of Black funerals, a lot of our funerals. The person that's climbing into the casket it's too late is because you didn't do what was right when she was alive.
Guilt. That guilt is eating them up.
That guilt, that guilt is chewing on them. And they can tell everyone what to do, but they can't do it themselves.
So you mentioned objectively critique. So I want to talk about in 2019, and this is when it came out, and that I started reading it in early 2019, in terms of the way in which you were providing care. I started manning the business that pays me as a licensed gerontology social worker and as a dementia thought leader. And when the reports came out and you were doing interviews about your caregiving lifestyle for B, I don't feel that people gave you a fair chance, right? I felt like people were minding the business that did not pay them. And so with complete transparency, I will say that I went on several radio talk shows. A good friend of mine, Glenn Ellis, information is the best medicine. He is the GOAT, I think. And he said, well, Macie, Dr. Macie, we got to talk about this thing with Dan Gasby and B. Smith, and how they're providing care. So I said, well, here's the thing. I can't speak on nobody else's business, but I can speak on someone, B. Smith, who's living with early onset. And based on my experience, my knowledge, and my research, it is all about the way the person feels. You mentioned it earlier about getting upset and being frustrated and experience a lack of patience. Those are all normal behaviors. You're not going to be perfect. So many people say to me, I wish I had known now what I didn't. I wish I had known then, what I know now, because I did it all wrong. I said it all wrong. Everybody is different. Everybody is individualized. And so I said that what I can tell based on the videos and the content that was put out there, you put it out, the daughter put it out, I can see the love that B felt. I don't care who was taking care of her. She felt love. What was the most challenging part? And I'm not going to rehash it because
hey, look,
they can read it. I mean, look, Dan, I'm probably going to get some messages too, but I'm good with that.
Hey, look, let me just say this. There is so much anger and racism in America, it's unbelievable. Alex was white, I'm Black, B's Black. The woman who wrote the article from the Griot told a lie. Alex never lived in my house, never. I got 7 bedrooms, or 6 if you count the office. She would come, she stayed downstairs, we do things together. I was dying. I was miserable. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, changing her, doing things. I mean, and Barbara she would do the same thing. I would want her to say the same thing to me. I'd want her to have somebody in her life too, as God is my witness. But I had people try to poison my dogs. I had adult protective services coming to my house basically every other day because somebody from someplace else was saying that I was abusive. I had people spit at me. I had Black women look at me with scorn. They didn't, Dan Gasby didn't do anything, and he's living off of B's money and he's giving money to that white woman. That white woman has a $5 million house and drives a Porsche, okay? She got more money than me, okay? Yeah. She's fine. I mean, we were friends. I helped her through her father going through the same thing in Germany, and we became romantically attached. Not here, not in this house. We stayed together. She was downstairs. At a certain point, I couldn't even sleep in the same bed with B because of obvious reasons.
Right. But you know
the
what?
point, the point I want to make is this. I got so much vitriol. I mean, I had people call and want to kill me.
Wow.
They wanted to kill me. They put Presto and antifreeze on meat and threw it out to my dogs.
Oh my God.
I mean, these were her babies. So, and well, and all of it was a lie. She never lived in my house. That one Grio article, and I don't even want to talk about it, but I will. And this guy named Paul, whatever his name, who took pictures of B, unbeknownst to me, videotaped her, lives in Washington, D.C. I can't even speak his name.
Let's not.
Yeah, he lied, and he took photos of me. And I was at a party with Michael Jordan's business manager, and I was in a pool, and he released those pictures to create controversy for likes and hits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if we're not careful, we will fall for the salaciousness of inaccuracies. And I'll tell you, Dan, my thing has always been, you got to sweep around your own front door before you go sweeping around somebody else's. The number one caregiving group is spouses. If you have not ever cared for your spouse who's living with Alzheimer's or a progressive type of dementia, or to take it a step further, early onset, I would tell folks, the woman who Dan married, he married her physical and her mental, right? So when her mental is deteriorating, her physical is still there. She's still physically there, but cognitively, she is no longer the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old he fell in love with and continued to love. The cognitive and mental capacity does begin to revert to previous life's patterns. And so when you're in love with someone, you are in love with their cognitive and their mental ability. So, I will say, I cannot say what I would do and what I wouldn't do, but what I know I would do whatever I needed to ensure that my loved one who was living with Alzheimer's felt the love here. I don't care how much this goes, the heart and the soul and the emotions never change. And she loved you. She had a relationship with Alex and she felt that. That's what you give someone throughout their journey. And we cannot forget about you as the caregiver and your needs. And unbeknownst to everybody else minding their business that don't pay them, you all had a conversation about that. And my thing is, I can tell that you're still, kind of torn and affected by the way people treated you and treated me. Because my thing is, when you treat the caregiver and the loved one, in a disrespectful manner, you are hurting the person who you say you love and want to look out for. And I'm going to tell you, and I know you found this out, people are mean.
No.
People are very mean.
The masses are asses. People would send me notes. Well, I want the hounds of hell to take you. Just mean, brothers calling me up. I don't do down low. I had a relationship. I was proud of the relationship. We went out together. Nobody out here, they were happy. They saw us laughing and joking and going to dinner and stuff like that. We'd sit down and watch movies. Alex would cook something for her. She'd go to sleep. She lived as best a life as possible in a situation when the house is on fire.
Yeah.
What most people don't understand is somewhere close to 1 out of 3 caregivers predecease the person they're caring for. People who care for people under this circumstance, they don't heal as fast, they get sicker sooner, they have mental depression, they have alcoholism, they use painkillers. Everything is exacerbated because you are in a 24/7, 365. You're in a terrorist situation with the person you love. It's not their fault. When you lose your brain, you lose your humanity. For women, a woman is 5'5" and the guy is 6'2", and usually men tend to be more physical and when they have dementia or Alzheimer's than women do. And so they may backhand her and not even know they did it. They may choke her, they may throw stuff. Because they're so much bigger, I have people calling me up about these things. I said, you got to have somebody with you. You know, you can't just live by yourself, or you've got to figure it out, because people get hurt.
Yeah, they do.
And there's nothing, and there's one other thing. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than someone pitying you when they don't understand one thing about what it's like to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, have to change somebody, go back to sleep, and then just when you're asleep, that person's wandering. Yeah. And then you got to go out in the morning and do whatever you've got to do, or you walk away and you can't wait to get away from the situation and the person. And the moment you get to that point that you're away, you can't wait to get back. That tears on your soul.
Yeah, it does.
I did that for 12 years.
It does.
5 of them I didn't even know.
You didn't even realize until
something was wrong, because you don't want to believe she's in great shape. You know, it'd be like me talking to you right now, and all of a sudden I go, "Well, I can't stand you. You know, I don't like what you're wearing.
Right.
You shouldn't. Why is that count your blessings on the back?" And then 10 minutes later, I go, "Oh, look at those beautiful glasses. Would you put them on for me?"
Right.
And that's that WTF period. You go,
yeah. And then you start to think hindsight, because hindsight is 2020. We know that with any form of dementia, it tends to start years before it manifests for anyone else to even recognize. And actually the person, recognizes the signs before anybody else does. So, Dan, I see that you have that beautiful picture. When we came on the line, I was just in awe. I mean, B is breathtaking, and look at you smiling. I know when I it's like when she moves, you move just like that. That song. And so when like, dang, I want that. I want to continue to have that. And, and it is in sickness and in health. And people who are throwing stones, you must have a clean slate. You must have nothing untoward or just ungodly in your life, because I won't go there, but you know what I'm saying.
Hey, I appreciate it, and I can look you or any person or the maker himself or herself in the eye. I was there. I was present. She knew I would take a bullet for her.
Yeah.
I would stand in front of her. You talk about, I was her cut man and she was in the ring. Yeah. We had a thing when we got together, and I made the show happen and sold for the show. I said, look, one of us is the quarterback and the other one is the lineman blocking. You stay on my shoulder, and when it's time to go to the goal, I'll clear the path.
There you go.
And
she knew that.
We could talk to each other from across the room with our eyes. So I know what love is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I used to always say love is lust and trust. Lust without trust will be a bust, and trust without lust will turn to rust.
Wow.
I know, and so many of these people never had anyone in their lives, and they're so angry. I had a great wife. I had 28 years. I had 18 of them that were perfect. We did whatever we wanted to do, and we made it happen.
Yeah.
So I get emotional about it.
Yeah.
So how dare you tell me I know B? You ain't even been in the restaurant. I know Miss B. No, it's not B-E-A. It's not B-E-E. It's just B.
Period.
Smith.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even her name, Barbara Elaine Smith, Bess. I know. They don't know. Yeah, I come at them. I don't back down.
You know what? And you have been strong throughout, and and I've been following you. I've been following your story. I've been following B, and it's such an inspiring story. It's such a transparent story, and you're saying things and you're speaking the truth that other people are afraid to speak. And I'm a fervent believer, if you cannot speak your truth, it's gonna kill you inside.
It
It's
does.
gonna eat you up inside.
It does. I always say I don't do the down low because I'm not low down.
Look, you got so many phrases I can't even keep up with.
I got nothing to hide. Nope. You can dig 3 feet deep. You can dig 30. You can dig to China. It's all the same dirt. It's all clean.
Dan, tell us, how are you keeping B's legacy alive?
Well, we've had 20 years of products at Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm hopeful that I can get. I want to put that picture right there, and I can ask you help. I want her to be in the African American Museum. She did so many different firsts. She accomplished so many different things that I want to see. That I want to donate that picture and have a section in there, because she broke ground that nobody did. She was healthy. The doctor said to me, we had her on a 4,000 calorie diet. You said earlier, I mean, if she had been in a facility, she wouldn't have lasted as long as she did.
Of course. Right. And that's what people need to understand.
Yeah.
People don't understand the plight of an Alzheimer's caregiver or of the person living with Alzheimer's or progressive types of dementia. You cannot provide care in isolation. You can't provide care to the caregiver and not the person. You can't provide care to the person and not the caregiver. It is a complete package. And again, minding the business that pays me, I feel that the way in which care was provided to her helped her, sustain her, and prolonged her life. If it would have been any other way, it could have been a different outcome because of the way she was feeling and what she felt.
I'll tell you a funny story. I have a 2-sided fireplace in a dining, kitchen, living area, and she wouldn't sit at the table to eat. She would walk with her food. Mm-hmm. And 5 dogs would follow her because she'd be dropping food. Yeah. So we would laugh and joke, and we called her like she was like Sputnik going around the moon, and boop, beep, 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 and then she'd come back around, and she would walk 5 miles a day. She would go outside. We had everything prepared. There was nothing for her to pick up. She would be outside. We could sit and watch her, and she was happy. She was in the sun. I wanted her to have as much, sunshine, as possible. I'm thankful. I would do it all over again, every single thing. I have no regrets. I know one thing. I was there.
Yeah.
For all those people, and I get calls all the time or messages, or I had a guy said, I cursed you until my wife had a brain aneurysm, and then she became incapacitated. And then he realized, you're sitting there with someone who is not there. A house is not a home.
Yeah, and I know just having that revelation, that person's revelation provided to you, I know that gave you a sense of comfort.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And there are way more stories out there, Dan, I can tell you. And you're right about the caregiver actually passing away before the person with the chronic illness, to the sum of about 35-40%.
Yeah. I was dying. Alex helped me go on, to have someone to talk to share moments. Because I'm the kind of person that wants to, some guys need to be with a lot of women. I need to be with one woman a lot of times, be there. Yeah. I'm a team player, and I need to have someone that I can share my time and my sense of strength and weakness. If you can't share your weaknesses with someone, you can't be a better human being.
Well, I appreciate you, my brother. I appreciate you sharing with us today. I'll tell you that as I'm traveling and I'm speaking, almost always I have a family member come to me and say, where were you when I was taking care of my mom? Or where were you when I was taking care of my husband or my wife? In what ways has your life been enriched since providing care to
Well,
B throughout her journey?
yeah, that call, I got a letter from a guy in Maine who said thank you. He had his wife had Alzheimer's. The friends pulled back. He couldn't take her to, he didn't know where to go to get her hair done. He met a woman at a beauty spa. They became friends, and she would take her to do all of the female things.
Mhm.
And they had a relationship. And he said, thank you for exposing that situation. And I will say this, women live longer than men, but women tend to have Alzheimer's twice. 2 out of 3 people with Alzheimer's are women. Our guys have to step up and know that they could be taking care of somebody like that.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure that out. But more importantly, you got to have a will so that you know you can explain when that what if becomes the what now. Every person in their 30s right now should have long-term disability while it's cheap.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, Dan, because I didn't learn about long-term care insurance until I was in my 30s. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, my mom and dad, and definitely my grandparents, never knew anything about it. And so when I'm working with clients who invested in long-term care insurance, then some of it is trash. Some of it is trash.
Oh, yeah.
But then the ones that are not, they're like the Cadillac of support services.
Exactly. It's, you know what it's like? It's like having smoke detectors in your house. When you really need it, you are thankful. Hopefully you don't ever have to use it, but it's nice to know you've got the insurance.
Got it. Yeah,
behind.
exactly.
And I see that all the time, but I particularly want to thank you for allowing me to set the record straight.
I
And
appreciate you.
I appreciate you because you break it down so that people can understand it's not about perfection.
Mm.
You have to forgive yourself. You have to be honest. You have to always just put one foot in front of the other. And that's what you do so brilliantly.
I appreciate that. And it's all about the moments. Dan, we love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us and just really enlightening us. How can folks get in contact with you? Social media, email?
Yeah, bsmith.com, Cad Gasby at bsmith.com, CAD Gasby at bsmith.com. That's the, Facebook, B Smith or Dan Gasby. It's easy.
Thank you so much. You're a friend to this platform, so you let us know how we can help you, and we'll be there for you.
Do me a favor, just keep being you, because you make it not only palatable, but you give people a reason to understand there's a reason to do the right thing.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna try my best. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for joining us again. We will see you next time.